Yesterday during the questions, there was one of the questions where you mentioned there's certain, I guess, patterns that are insidious, like things that are troublesome, that keep coming up. And that kind of leapfrogs into something which has bothered me as far as the meditation practice which I've had. And I'm new to your teachings, but I relate to what you're saying and where it's pointing. So I have a pattern that takes on a life of its own, and it involves when there's a chain of events that threaten my survival, which mostly is about losing money, a loss in the stock market, a contentious divorce, most recently a break-in and stealing stuff from my motorhome. And it's like so disturbing, and it literally, it's like out of control. I'll sit with it, and like you were suggesting, bring it in close to you, and that might work. Breathing might work, exercise, but it goes on and on and on, reiterates. I'll have a conversation with my mind about, this is not really a good thing that's happening. I'm like getting so stressed out, and we're going to get, can we do something else? And so in those moments, I am watching or aware of that, but it feels so out of control and it disturbs me. And I guess I want to get done with that pattern. It doesn't feel, in my mind, I guess, it doesn't feel like an activity that's healthy, that's getting me more in touch with myself, but it's out of control and I don't know what to do about it. And in the context of your teaching, but also like, I guess it's like a life question, there's something, wrapped in my core that's just waiting. And the other side is, when things go well, which is most of the time for me, I'm fine. And that I don't have a problem with. Which is something I just realized, like in looking at it and thinking what I wanted to ask. I said, well, there is also this other side where you just go like, oh yeah, things are good, no problem. Let's go on and keep enjoying, the meditation and whatever I'm doing.
And this core habit or pattern, it's always around money and lack, and is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. You're right. This anxiety around money comes from something very core in you, and it's not really to do with money. Money, as you intimated in your question, is that gives this core feeling just something to latch onto. It validates or justifies the feeling, but the feeling itself is a sense of lack or scarcity. It comes from a deep conditioning that we're all conditioned with in our culture, that we live in a physical universe where resources are finite, that we live in a finite world, and that those finite resources are going to run out, and that we therefore have to hold on to them. This is the core, way well before it has anything to do with money. It's a belief. There's not enough. There's not enough to go round. There's not enough for everybody to live fully. And this expresses itself in your anxiety about money. But we don't live in a physical universe made out of finite stuff called matter. The universe is made out of consciousness, and it's endless. There's enough for everybody to go round. Is there anybody in the universe or any animal that has less consciousness than somebody else? If population grew from 7 billion to 9 billion, would each person have a little bit less consciousness as a result? No, we'd all have the complete fullness of consciousness that we all have now. There's enough to go round. So that's where this contraction around money comes from in you, this very, very deep conditioning that all our minds are conditioned with, that there's not enough to go around, that the resources are going to run out. And so that is this is my very absolute response. I'll give you another more relative response as well, but this is my absolute response. And it's really, if you want to not simply tinker with the problem or manage it, but really go to the heart of it, it's about going to the core of yourself and realizing that what you essentially are lacks for nothing. That's the ultimate cure for this problem. And generosity is the inevitable outcome of this understanding. So that's the very absolute answer, to discover that in yourself which is free of the sense of lack, that is abundant, that needs nothing, and to try and know yourself as that rather than know yourself as a person that lacks something. So it really means knowing what you essentially are. That's the ultimate cure. And now at the other end of the spectrum, a more relative and temporary, practical, well, no, that was a very practical response I gave you, but a more a more physical, something you can actually do physically. Where do you live?
Here, in the area.
In this area. Well, I'm sure you, almost on a daily basis, you go past someone in the street begging for money. Just always give them $5. Everyone you meet, give them $5. Even if you know they're just going to go and spend it on meths or drugs, that's not your problem. Give it to them, but be sure that when you give it to them, you look them in the eye. You smile at them with a love that comes from the recognition that you share their being, and wish them well. Try those two approaches in conjunction with each other.
I mean, sure, the first, I mean, that sounds great, and that'll move. Here's a funny thing. I had $1 in my van before it got broken into. I had all these dollars which I would use, but I see that I needed $5. But I would long for the first one, but it's a little bit, my mind says like, and I feel that, when I meditate, I feel there's no lack. I feel really like those things that you mentioned,
But take that feeling out into your life, not just in the privacy of your heart when you're meditating, but if you find it, if you can connect with that understanding, that feeling understanding during meditation, just take that feeling understanding out onto the streets so that you feel while you're walking down the streets of Berkeley or Oakland or wherever, just that you feel that same sense of the fulfillment, the absence of lack, that you don't need anything to fulfill you or fill you up, nor can anyone really take anything away from you that is of value. When you had this break-in in your motorhome, I don't mean to be facile about it, I'm sure you lost things that were precious to you, but did they take anything that was really indispensable to you? Did anyone take anything of yourself away from you?
They did not.
Could anyone ever take that?
They can't. They cannot.
So that's the feeling to get in touch with. I cannot lose what I really am. Nobody can take that from me. And feel that. I know that you understand that intellectually. I know you feel it as well, but not just in your meditation. When you're walking down the street, feel it. And allow that feeling to govern the way you relate with people and you act.
Yeah, I feel like that, because it's so core, like in a way that's conditioning, I guess, is what's between me and feeling what you're describing.
But remember, there's nothing between you and yourself. Even this conditioning was added to you by your culture, but there has to have been a you there first to be conditioned. There must be something, for there to be conditioning, there has to be something to be conditioned. That something is you. You are on this side of your conditioning. So your conditioning is not between you and yourself.
Yeah, again, I understand it, but it doesn't feel that way when it's, like when it's in gear and active.
But that's why I say make contact with this feeling understanding during your meditation, and then go out onto the streets with this feeling that what you essentially are is whole. No. When you were a 5-year-old boy and you said to yourself simply, I am, I exist. Can you imagine now being a 5-year-old boy in your parents' garden or wherever, and just going to the feeling of being, just the simple feeling that I am, I exist. And now go to the same feeling now, I am, or I exist.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's the same. All these years, all the experiences that you've had, the wonderful ones and the awful ones, none of them have touched, none of them have added anything to, nor removed anything from yourself. Yourself is in the same whole, complete, perfect condition. And go to that feeling, that feeling understanding in your meditation, and then walk down the streets with this same. It's both a feeling that nothing can touch you, but I don't mean by that you are aloof and separate. On the contrary, you touch all of your experience intimately, but it cannot affect you, it cannot harm you, so you can be totally open in all experience. There's no need to defend yourself because there's nothing there to defend. And if you take that feeling out onto the streets, I think this sense of always having to protect something that is being threatened, that people are going to take something precious away from you. Nobody has ever or could ever take anything that is really precious away from you. And it comes from this feeling, something precious is going to be stolen from me. I need to protect it. You don't need to protect it.
Yeah.
And then this coupled with this $5 exercise will that's the same. In a way, it's the same practice, but it's work coming at it from a different angle.
Right. Thank you.
You will feel enriched by giving $5 to these homeless people. You will, particularly if you meet them in the eye, and that they will express their gratitude and their vulnerability and their openness to you in the way they look back at you. You will feel enriched by them. Mm. The more you give them, the more enriched you will feel. Start with $5. No, I don't really mean the more in terms of material, but the more you give, you won't feel you're losing anything. You'll feel enriched by the experience. But if you're traveling somewhere and you're staying in a hotel, just leave. Your hotel room has cost you $180. What is an extra $20? Leave $20 and a thank you note for the person who cleans the room, who's probably underpaid. Mm. And just write a note. What will be received by the other person is so much more than $20. The $20 will be incidental. You'll send a message without ever knowing who the person is, that they will receive the generosity of your gift. And you will also receive it. You'll also receive their gratitude without ever knowing them.